Okay, the question on the board right here is similar to where I was going to take the conversation, because you know what the deal is, Cam. In general, after a game like this, you generally have two camps: the ones that blame the players, or the recruiting to say we're not good enough. We're just not good enough. The players aren't good enough. And then you generally have a camp that says, we've been recruiting great talent. I love these players. We've got talent. They're screwing it up. The coaches can't coach. They either don't develop the players, they don't have a good scheme, they can't adjust, the play calling sucks. It's either a coaching or it's a player issue. Those are the general two camps from most people. So where would you go in terms of the analysis of this game?
6 in one half, half dozen in the other. In one hand, half dozen in the other. Honestly, like there were some clear times when it was just like, it's the X's and O's, because if you go to the same thing over and over again, you try to fit that ball in there, that RPO slant 15 yards down, or, the square in. First drive, second drive, that's a tightly contested completion for Miami. Third quarter, fourth quarter, that's an interception for Alabama because we went to the same scheme over and over again, right? So it's a little bit of that. And then there's just some times where it's the Jimmies and Joes too. Again, I referenced that 94-yard touchdown. That wasn't schemed up to score. But when you have a cornerback who's nowhere in the screen, when the ball, is completed at the 50-yard line, thrown from the end zone, you run hurry up on 4th and goal from the inch line. And in the way that you don't want it to see, the line of scrimmage goes the wrong way because their defense loads up and says, cool, you want to play big boy ball? Weight room, little fella. And you're like, okay. And then all of a sudden they're in the backfield, So, and again, shout out to Bryce Young, an incredible performance by an incredibly talented guy. I told you all about his high school stats from, a few weeks ago. You don't have 16,000, 17,000 yards of total offense in high school like he did, whatever the stupid number it was over the course of 4 years, out of the middle of nowhere. You don't even see that in college, of that kind of production. So an individual player who's really incredible. So it's a little bit of the scheme and it's a little bit of the players. And I talked about 2 touchdown plays before that I think, after having rewatched them and everything, and again, I saw the one live and the other one I had to see when it was reviewed by somebody else on video. Those are touchdowns. But for a bad throwing decision by Eric King on the switch wheel and a right tackle who still hasn't touched the edge rusher on the other one. Because again, if the one ball is thrown, it's a touchdown. If the other one is thrown in front like it's supposed to be, it's a touchdown. So there's a deficiency on the players on both of those plays, not on the scheme, because guys were open. So you're going to be able to find both. In terms of, again, if you're measuring Miami against Alabama, the gold standard in there, who we played last week, there is a deficiency in talent, especially in terms of depth, because they can rotate players and not lose the level. You can clearly see it in Miami. In certain places, you can rotate players and not lose the level, but at other places, you rotate players and the level is vastly different between the ones and the twos. So there is going to be a measure of that. And especially in the trenches. It's kind of crazy, where Miami was elite on defense, was defensive edge rusher, but you lose Roche, Russo, and Jalen Phillips in the course of a year, basically. And then you go into the game against Alabama, where you probably need to be disruptive in the backfield. You saw what Georgia did to Clemson. You need to, be able to get up the field. You don't really have a dynamic player there to do that. Offensive line, in comparison to Alabama's defensive line, the stats speak for themselves. So, yeah, there's going to be a little bit of both, the talent level and the coaching. Because it's not a single source thing. It's not one play. It's not one choice. It's not one recruiting decision. It's not one anything. There's multiple facets to what happened and what we saw, and hopefully you were able to balance them out so that you can be productive. But a major point that I want to see, especially when you're faced with a comparable or better team across the field. And Bud Elliott, former SB Nation colleague, now at 247 Sports, made the clear point, and I believe it to be 100% correct. Miami's offense is basically we have better skill dudes, and we're just going to kind of be better and create space and be explosive. But that doesn't work when you have a team that's as good as you or better than you on the other side. So what are you going to do to scheme up to mitigate, to change, because you don't have the talent advantage that you will against Duke, against Appalachian State, against Central Connecticut, things like that, where, the talent will really just rise to the top. How are you scheming then to give your talent the advantage that they don't naturally have? And that's been a thing that's been missing, and I want to see how we can do that moving forward. And it cannot just be on the 2 plays, or even if we say, okay, I saw 2 of those plays. Let's call it, out of the 62 plays that were run on offense, I think, 63 plays of offense. Let's call it let's quadruple it and say that's 8 plays, right? That were explosive or potentially explosive and things like that. What are you doing with the other 55 downs? And hopefully we find a way to have more downs, because you just need the football a little bit more, because they had the football more than us as well.
Which leads us into more specifically from Chugmo Beer. Thank you so much for the super chat contribution.
Yes, sir.
This is Red Lashley's 3rd big game. But as we count him up, I think he's going to 4 big. No, it's 3rd big game.
Mm-hmm.
At Miami, he has failed every time. Clemson, North Carolina, now Alabama. All slow starts, very questionable play calling. No more excuses that
He spelled it wrong.
Red is overrated. Gotcha.
Yeah. Thank you for the super chat there, Chuck Beer. Again, I think that goes to my last point of, if you are really just going to say, hey, we have better athletes and we can kind of just be our regular selves, but our increased athleticism is going to get us in the end zone, a la last year against Duke, a la last year against Louisville, who, couldn't stop a paper bag from blowing down the field. Sure. But when you're faced with a comparable or better level of talent, the games that he's mentioned, Clemson, North Carolina, now Alabama, what are you doing actively? And it cannot always be, well, you saw I called this one touchdown play and, they didn't throw it right, or I called this touchdown play, but he didn't block. If we have a singular data point to support you, think about, again, all the plays and all the drives and all the things that then are negative based upon what you're saying. You know what I mean? But yeah, I need to see that be better from him as well. I'm not going to say he's overrated per se, but improvements are needed, especially, again, when faced with a comparable level of talent. And that kind of sort of spins forward towards this weekend, which means that, like, Miami has more talent than Appalachian State. Miami went to Boone, North Carolina in 2015 and blew them out 45-10.
16, right? Rick's
16,
first
sorry,
year?
Yeah. That was Brad Kaya's second year. Yes, sorry. So I need to see that happen this year, where if we're going to say our athletes is going to out-athlete you, and that's how we're going to beat you, then I need to see this happen. The line is a touchdown. If you look at the SP Plus, I think that metric by Bill Conley is predicting like a 5 or 6 point game, like 30-24. Yeah. And everything in Appalachian State are a game outfit. They are not a lifeless, moribund, 0-12 team. They won their game last week and everything. But again, for Miami to have the season that they greatly desire, and I believe the schedule sets up to have, first of all, you need to win, period. Because winning a game, any game, is difficult. We've all talked about this. We know this. But not only do I need to win, I would like to see a performance that I'm proud of and gives me a reason to project a similar performance moving forward.